The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Your official Chicagoland weather forecast from our 1-hour heating and air conditioning weather center. Variable clouds, high of 66, mostly cloudy, 52 overnight, cloudy and 70 tomorrow. We have some sunshine right now, 55 degrees. Your next news at 7, breaking news as it happens. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. California Governor Gavin Newsom was on CNBC yesterday arguing for why California should get $1 trillion from the federal government to cover their lost revenue and expenditures related to COVID-19.
Public health, public safety is impacted. Public education is impacted very directly. That doesn't need to happen. The purpose of federal government is to keep people safe and also focus on the well-being of our citizens. At the end of the day, we're not looking for charity. We're not looking for a handout. We believe this is social responsibility. It's not a red issue. It's not a blue issue. It's not a large state issue or a small state issue. It's an American issue. You heard Jerome Powell himself today talk about the impact of this, the likes of which we've never seen in our lifetime. And so it's incumbent upon the federal government to do more and to do better at this moment. And not pointing fingers when I say that. I am just saying we have a shared responsibility to the American people, 40 million that live in the state of California.
And on the
is that a blue issue, a red issue? It's a democratically run state issue. Please.
And on the business issue, the issue of businesses leaving, Elon Musk's very public looking around at Nevada and Texas as a place to possibly locate Tesla. Here's Gavin Newsom on the business climate in California, which, by the way, scheduled to lose a member of Congress, just like Illinois is, just like New York is. What do they have in common?
We may not be the cheapest place to do business, but we're the best place to do business. And it shouldn't surprise you or anyone watching that innovation and research and development and that entrepreneurial spirit is still alive and well, despite this pandemic here in the state of California. I've known Elon for decades. I have great respect and admiration for his innovative spirit, and this state has been his partner in helping him grow his business. We're confident that he and others will thrive, not just survive in the future in this state. And so with respect to those that want to be taking advantage of this moment, no, California knows no equal as the 5th largest economy in the world, and we're investing in our future, and we'll invest in our growth engines, and we'll invest in our innovators.
There's something that Gavin Newsom said that went unremarked upon, but it bears some remarks. With respect to Tesla, California has been Elon Musk's partner. He's right. Isn't that part of the problem? Isn't that part of the problem? State, local governments, federal government too, but let's just talk state and local. Private-public partnerships for everything. The government getting into all sorts of businesses. It has no competency to operate. Playing venture capitalist in a space it has no competency to operate. And the costs are substantial. And now when you really need the backstop, because of your past bad acts, number one, there's not the capacity, and number two, there's not the inclination. Let me give you an example of what I mean about California. Did we forget? Just last year, California trims its high-speed rail ambitions. Remember, this was a state that wanted to put a bullet train between San Francisco and L.A. at a cost of about $100 billion. California voters in 2008 approved a $10 billion bond issue to build the line. The federal government provided $3.5 billion.
Oy. And didn't they run out of money?
They ceased the project. It would just cost too much and take too long, said Governor Newsom. Well, good for him for stopping at some point. It was projected to cost, north of $100 billion. I mean, really north of $100 billion. The only thing that will take longer and cost more to complete, where it's still underway, by comparison, would be the Burn interchange downtown.
Yeah, that's what's going to end first, our lockdown or the Burn interchange?
Our life on this planet is going to end first before that interchange.
Okay, so when that happens, then does the federal government get their $3 billion back?
Hilarious.
I tried to be funny today.
Yeah.
On a
No,
Wednesday.
it's a great one.
No, I do.
Funny, you're funny lady. and so that's the backdrop of this interrelation. And all the I go back again, all the data points we discussed last hour about the damage that has been inflicted by the ready, lockdown, aim policies that states and localities, as well as private sector actors, all want the federal government to backstop. You think that all of this is going to be solved by taking the money states send the federal government and turning it back around to state governments in bigger quantities? $1 trillion to California, which has $1.5 trillion in unfunded liabilities. What, a couple hundred, $100 billion to the state of Illinois that has $250 billion in unfunded liabilities? Or is it a culture problem, political culture problem in particular states that cannot be solved no matter how big the check is you write? And so, you know what? You shouldn't write it. You should demand the culture change before the support, just like with anybody addicted to destructive behavior. For more on this and some more data to crunch, pleased to be joined again by our friend Sheila Weinberg, founder and CEO of Truth in Accounting, truthinaccounting.org. They have put out a new report at the city level, big cities, including Chicago, and what the picture looks like for those big cities. Sheila, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Talking about California, Governor Newsom for years has said that, hey, our budget's balanced, we're running surpluses. Well, why didn't he just accumulate all those surpluses so we had a rainy day fund enough to cover this crisis? But he really wasn't running surpluses. The state has $275 billion of unfunded debt, including their pensions. But he claimed surpluses. Maybe people, when they went to the voting booth to vote on that high-speed rail, maybe they're like, oh, well, we must be doing great. We're running surpluses, when they were really hiding the truth about the state's debt. And now, unfortunately, all that debt is coming to bite them during a crisis.
And your 2020 Financial State of the Cities report, give us an overview of Chicago, New York, L.A., the big cities.
Yeah, Chicago unfortunately ranked the worst of all the cities.
Shocking.
Wow.
I know.
This just in.
We do this study because Chicago, as you know, they have thousands of government units. So if you just look at the city of Chicago's finances, each taxpayer's share of their unfunded debt is $37,000, but they don't include CPS in that in their financial statements. So we had to dig and go over and look at the CPS's financial statements and found $18,000 more dollars that each taxpayer's share of their debt, plus Cook County, plus CTA, plus the Park District, and then if you add the state of $52,600. You come up with a whopping $122,000, which is each taxpayer's share of their government's debt. They're going to have, we call it a taxpayer burden, because they're going to be burdened with paying for paying taxes in that amount without receiving any government goods or services.
And what if we're not using our park districts for the foreseeable future, and we're not going to school, so a lot of taxpayers don't want to pay that portion of their tax bill, and come August.
Yeah, that's right. And but the debt, even if you closed it down, you'd still have this overhanging debt.
Well, and $122,000 is the combined taxpayer burden for the taxpayer in Chicago. New York at 83, L.A. at 49, Philadelphia at 45, and on down the list to Phoenix at 10,000. Just to give you some context, so the order of magnitude of the mismanagement in Chicago compared to other big cities, frankly, much bigger cities, and not exactly held up usually as models of governance. It just shows you the separation between Chicago and everywhere else in terms of the financial catastrophe that the city is, despite what Mayor Lightfoot wants to admit it is.
Yeah, and what they admit is that, again, the budget's balanced, and so for decades everybody thought everything was fine. Did this affect votes? Did people go to the voting booth going, oh, well, everything, they balanced the budget, everything must be good, so we'll reelect those guys, We think this isn't a numbers game. We think it's an accountability issue where the citizens of the city of Chicago and other governments are not given the financial information they need to be knowledgeable participants in their governments.
There's some interesting data too. I'll get back to Chicago, but just some of the cities that are actually running taxpayer surpluses, including in California. I note Stockton, $2,600 taxpayer surplus. $2,600 per taxpayer. Stockton that had a bankruptcy event occur.
Yeah, and they were, when they went bankrupt, they weren't able to get rid of most of their pension debt, but they were able to get rid of their retiree health care debt. So, for example, in Illinois, we have $56 billion of retiree health care debt that's not funded. These are promises we've made to the teachers and the state workers for their health care, but we haven't set any money aside to fund those. The pensions, those are horribly funded, but the retiree health care is even worse funded. There's hardly any money there.
I wanted to also just reiterate, you started to mention it, but just for emphasis to give people a reminder about the layers of government here. $122,000 per taxpayer in Chicago is the burden, as you said. That's just what you're financing, like a credit card, over time without getting anything in return for it. $37,000 City of Chicago, $18,000 CPS, $8,800 Cook County, $4,000 Chicago Transit Authority (CTA), $1,200 Chicago Park District, $700 MWRD, $100 Community College District, $800 Chicago Housing Authority, the state $52,000. Chicago Housing Authority, Chicago Community College District, MWRD, Chicago Park District, Chicago Transit Authority, Cook County Government, Chicago Public Schools, City of Chicago. The layers and layers and layers of government. We know government in Cook County represents 4 of the top 5 employers. That seems to be just a structural infirmity that you can't work around.
Well, what happened in Illinois is years ago when the state couldn't borrow any more money, they were having horrible financial problems. Hey, we're there again. They couldn't borrow anymore, so they opened up layers and layers and taxing authorities that could tax the people, and therefore they could borrow money based upon those future taxes, and that's why we have so many layers, and that's why we had to do this study, because New York may be worse than the city of Chicago if you just look at their audited financial statements, but they don't have all these underlying governments that aren't included in their financial statements.
And to the reaction that you've heard from both state and local officials to the sort of olive branch, if you will, policy suggestion that Mitch McConnell offered to say, look, I don't know about bailing out states from previous bad actions, bad decisions over generations, but if you want to talk about the possibility of a provision that would allow states and municipalities, but particularly states in this case, to reorganize, then I'd be open to hearing that. And of course, Cuomo and Phil Murphy and Pritzker all said that, that was the dumbest idea ever advanced, the idea of bankruptcy provision for states.
Well, people ask me, what's going to happen here, and the Supreme Court has said you can't, renegotiate or change the pensions. You can't change the retiree health care benefits. So those under current law, you can't change those. We've run out of options. So that's another possible option. And as you said, Stockton went bankrupt, and now they're doing fine. So the current options we have aren't working. They're just putting us further and further and further into debt. So, maybe bankruptcy is another option that we should consider.
She is Sheila Weinberg, founder and CEO of Truth in Accounting. Truthinaccounting.org is where you can find their 2020 State of the Cities report. Sheila, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dan and Amy.
Take care.
Thanks. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The Lou Dobbs Financial Report is brought to you by Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Visit signaturebank.bank for your commercial banking needs.
I'm Lou Dobbs. The Fed chair calls for financial help to states and localities. Unemployment in Britain also at record levels, and Facebook launches a new shopping feature. Those stories next. Hi, folks. Lou Dobbs. Like most of us, I've picked up a few aches and pains over the years. Inflammation is the reason many of us suffer with achy pain joints and muscles. Left untreated, inflammation can cause permanent damage. Pain relievers and topical creams don't typically treat the problem. They mask it. Omega XL is a powerful natural supplement designed to help reduce pain